The forest was quiet, in the way only ancient forests can be, as though the trees themselves were holding their breath. The moon hung low and silver, casting pale ribbons of light across the moss and roots, and through that stillness, faint and fragile as spider silk, came a song, a lullaby so soft it could have been the wind, so sorrowful it could have been memory, so tender it could only have come from a mother's heart. Alpha King Kaelin froze at the edge of the pines, his wolf going still inside him. The night patrols had ended hours ago, and he should have returned to the palace, to the throne room, filled with matters that never touched the heart. But something in that voice pulled him like a tide. He closed his eyes and listened. Sleep, little star, the night is kind, the moon will guard your dreaming mind. The voice trembled on the last note, a sigh, a crack, a wound. Kaelin's hand tightened on his cloak. His heart, which had not truly beat for years, gave a single painful pulse. Before we begin this story, tell me, dear listener, where in the world are you right now? And what time is it where you are? Are you in your bed or your room, or curled somewhere warm, letting the night settle around you? Take a breath, let the world slow, and now, The song drifted again, deeper into the woods. Kaelin moved toward it. He walked with the grace of a predator, every step soundless, every sense sharpened. His wolf hovered close beneath his skin, alert, restless, yearning. He hadn't heard a lullaby since. He didn't let himself finish the thought. The moonlit leaves whispered against his shoulders, the scent of pine and earth rose around him, and something else, lavender, warm milk, and sunlight. He followed the voice to a small clearing where the moonlight spilled like silver water across the grass, and there, standing beside a fallen log, was a woman. She had long, dark hair braided loosely over her shoulder, strands catching moonlight like threads of starlight. Her dress was simple linen, worn at the hem, bare feet, slim hands, and in her arms a child, no more than 3 or 4, sleeping against her chest. She rocked him gently, humming the last notes of the lullaby, her cheek resting against his hair as though it were the only thing anchoring her to the world. Kaelin's breath caught, because the boy had his eyes, storm gray, the color of winter sea, the exact shade Kaelin had seen in the mirror every day of his life. The wolf inside him went utterly silent. The woman did not see him yet. She looked so young and so tired, as though the world had asked her to carry too much and she had done so without complaint. There was a sadness in her, deep, unshakable, but also something fierce, protective. Kaelin stepped forward. A twig cracked beneath his boot. The lullaby broke off. Her head snapped up, eyes wide, breath caught, body curving instinctively around the child. She knew danger, she knew how to defend. She had done it before. "Who are you?" she whispered, voice steady but soft. Kaelin opened his mouth. The truths he should speak tangled with the ones he feared. "I am Kaelin," he said finally. "Not King, not Alpha, just Kaelin." The woman's eyes flickered. Recognition, fear, disbelief. She knew that name. Everyone in the kingdom knew it. But she did not kneel. She did not bow. She only held the child closer. "What do you want?" she asked. The wind rustled the pines. The moonlight shifted. The boy stirred faintly and nestled deeper into her shoulder. "I heard your song," Kaelin said, voice low, "and I followed it." Her breath hitched, not from fear, but from memory. She had known him once. She looked away, eyes shining. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered. "Not here, not near him." His pulse thundered. Him, not the child, not this boy, him. His wolf surged, claws against his ribs. "Is he yours?" Kaelin asked, though every cell in his body already knew the answer. She looked at him then, really looked at him, and something in her expression broke, quietly, like ice cracking beneath weight. "Yes," she said. Kaelin's chest tightened until he could barely breathe. "And your mate?" he whispered. Her eyes closed. "Dead," she answered. The words sliced through him. Dead, gone, lost, like his own mate had been lost, or so he had believed. But standing before him was a child who carried his blood, and a woman whose voice felt like fate. His wolf whispered just one word, "Mate." The ground shifted under him. The woman stepped back, clutching the child, as though the world might steal him away at any moment. "You should leave," she said softly, "for his sake, for yours." Kaelin didn't move. "Tell me your name." Her throat worked. "Alara," a name like soft earth and rain, a name that felt like a memory he had been trying to recall for years. "Alara," he repeated, and the sound of it felt like a vow, but the moment shattered with a sudden wind. like the forest itself warning them. Alara's eyes hardened again. If the palace knows he lives, she whispered, voice shaking, they will come for him. They will never let him live free. His heart nearly stopped. Why? He asked, barely able to speak. She looked at him then, with grief so deep it looked like drowning. Because he is the heir, she said softly, the child sleeping in her arms, the child with his eyes, the heir to the Alpha King. The night held still, the forest listened, the moon did not blink. Kaelin's world, his kingdom, his past, his understanding of love and loss, all shifted in one breath. He stepped forward, voice breaking. Alara, why didn't you come to me? Why didn't you? Her tears fell soundlessly. I did, she whispered, but you never knew. The lullaby that had once soothed a child, now filled the forest with heartbreak. The walk back to her cottage was slow, deliberate, silent. Alara kept the child, the boy held close to her shoulder, her palm resting protectively on his small back. Kaelin followed a step behind, not daring to walk closer, not daring to look away. The forest glowed in muted silver, pine needles whispering beneath their feet. Somewhere an owl called. The world felt suspended, waiting to see what would unfold between them. Aaron, the boy stirred once, small fingers clutching at the fabric of his mother's dress. Alara shushed him, instinctively, her touch tender, practiced, familiar. Kaelin's throat tightened at the sight. He had missed all of that. His son's first breath, his first laugh, his first step, his first word, all the beginnings that should have been his to share. He forced a breath deep into his chest. It didn't reach the ache under his ribs. When they reached the cottage, it looked almost like something from a dream. Small, tucked into ivy and wildflowers, warm yellow lamplight flickering through its windows. Smoke drifted from a stone chimney. A little fence circled a herb garden, though it had gone unruly at the edges. Alara was living, simply and quietly, hidden, safe, or so she had hoped. She opened the door with a soft click of the latch and slipped inside. Kaelin remained at the threshold until she glanced back. You can come in. Permission. Salt soft, wary, real. Kaelin stepped inside. The cottage smelled of chamomile, lavender, wood smoke and something soft like honey. He had forgotten scents could feel warm. Alara laid Aaron gently on a small bed near the fireplace, tucking a wool blanket up to his chin. The boy sighed in his sleep, his small fist releasing its tension. Kaelin watched with reverence he did not fully understand. Only when the child was settled did Alara turn to him. Her face held calmness, but her hands trembled, just a little. Kaelin swallowed. Alara, but she shook her head. No, she said softly, not yet. Sit. She motioned to a chair at the small wooden table. Kaelin took the seat, though he felt like a stranger in his own skin. Alara poured tea into two mismatched cups, her movements steady though her silence was heavy. She sat across from him, her hair falling loose around her shoulders now, the braid undone by the child's sleep. The fire crackled. Kaelin's voice came out low, rough. I did not know. Her eyes lifted, and in them pain lived like an echo chamber. I know, she whispered. That's the only reason you're still sitting here. Their eyes held, not anger, not accusation, just two lives that diverged where they should have intertwined. Alara, tell me how this happened, he said, her fingers curled around the warm teacup. She took a breath. You remember the river festival 4 years ago? Kaelin nodded slowly. The memory felt distant, quiet, softened by loss. The lanterns, the music, the river glowing gold with candlelight. For one night, the kingdom had felt light, free, alive, and he had felt something like happiness. I was there, she continued. I was tending the herbal stall. I had always lived near the palace, though I was not of noble blood, just a healer's apprentice. I had seen you before, but that night, she looked down, as though the memory itself burned. You noticed me. He remembered flashes, a laugh, a hand brushing moonlight on dark hair. Yes, he remembered her, the warmth blooming in his chest, then was the same one blooming now. We talked. You walked with me by the river, and when your hand touched mine, she inhaled sharply. Our wolves recognized each other. Kaelin's heart twisted. The bond, the mate, bond. He had believed it had never taken root with anyone. He had believed his destined mate had died before he ever found her, but he had found her, and lost her, without knowing. Alara, he whispered, voice raw, you were my mate. She nodded, a tear sliding down her cheek, not dramatic, not broken, just quietly, inevitably. Yes, I was. The cup in his hands shook. What happened? He asked. Why did you leave me? Why did no one tell me? Why did I? He broke off. His voice was too loud for this small place, too full of grief. Alara set her tea down with careful, practiced grace. He realized she had learned how to handle fragile things, even when they shattered. Because they said I was not good enough for you. The room still. Kaelin's blood went cold. Who? Alara. Who? Her jaw tightened, not in fear, in memory. Your counsel, your late advisor, and Seraphine. Her voice trembled on that final name. Seraphine, highborn, strategic, raised to be queen, and she had always believed she would be. They came to me the morning after the festival, Alara said softly. They told me you would never be allowed to love someone like me, that I would hold you back, that I would put the kingdom in danger. They offered me money to leave. Kaelin's hands curled so tightly his knuckles went bone white. You believed them? His voice cracked. Alara's lashes fluttered shut. No, she said. I didn't leave. Her breath shook. I came to you, to tell you everything, to ask you to choose. Kaelin felt his heart stop. But your guards turned me away at the gate, she whispered. And I didn't know I was already carrying him then. Her hand drifted to her sleeping son. Kaelin felt the world tilt slowly, painfully, like a wound finally exposed to daylight. Alara, he said again, but this time the word was apology, confession, plea. She looked at him with eyes that were tired of being strong. You didn't know, she whispered. That is the one grace we both have. The firelight flickered. Outside, the night wind rustled the pine boughs. Inside, silence stretched, soft, fragile, waiting. Kaelin finally spoke, voice rough with vow. Alara, I will not lose you again. Her eyes filled, shining like wet glass. Please don't make promises in the dark, Kaelin, she whispered. Dawn always changes them. But her voice wavered, just a little, and that was the first crack in her wall. Morning came gently over the cottage. The light filtered through leaves and curtains as though careful not to wake the child still sleeping near the hearth. The world outside was pale gold, soft with dew. Birdsong just began. Alara moved quietly, gathering herbs from glass jars, her sleeves pushed to her elbows. Kaelin watched from the small wooden table, his cloak folded beside him, armor left outside as if stepping into this place required shedding the weight of being king. He had not slept, not because he was restless, but because he was afraid it would break if he closed his eyes. This moment, this proof, this fragile return of something like hope. Iran, his son, slept with the peace only children possess, lips relaxed, lashes resting on round his small chest rose and fell with soft breaths. Kaelin wondered how many nights Alara had sung him to sleep alone, how many mornings she had greeted without him, how many steps Iran had taken, uncelebrated by the father who would have lifted him to the heavens for each one. Alara stirred a small pot over the fire. You're watching me, she said quietly, not turning around. Kaelin didn't deny it. I don't want to miss anything anymore. Her hand paused, just one heartbeat, but he saw it. Then she continued stirring, voice soft as steam. You will have to. Kaelin straightened slightly. Why? Alara finally turned to look at him, her face calm, not cold but steady. Because the moment you return to the palace, everything changes. The truth settled like mist, thin but impossible to ignore. The world did not stop turning just because Kaelin had found what he had lost. He had a kingdom, a council, allies and enemies, a coronation treaty awaiting Aluna's name, and until now that space beside him had been empty stone. He leaned forward, hands folding on the table. Alara, you and Iran belong with me. Alara's eyes flickered, longing, fear, memory. Kaelin, she whispered, I belong to no palace, no throne, and Iran, her voice softened, fragile with love, he belongs to a childhood, to sunlight, to safe places, not to walls and expectations and the weight of being heir to a kingdom that once wanted us gone. Kaelin exhaled, slow and heavy. Things have changed in the kingdom, he told her, but even as he said it he knew that was only partially true. The kingdom was quieter, more order, but the court was still a place of ambition and sharp smiles. Alara shook her head gently. Some things do not change, Kaelin, not easily, and the people who told me to disappear, they are still there. He felt a growl curl in his chest, low, protective, enraged. Alara, I would tear down the council before I ever let them take you from me again. Her eyes softened, not with disbelief, but with grief. I know, That's what frightens me. The fire crackled between them, because love that destroys kingdoms is just another kind of war. Later when Aaron woke, the cottage filled with warmth again like the sun had risen inside the room. He blinked sleepily and upon seeing Kaelin broke into a shy smile, the kind children have when they recognize something instinctively, without words or less. Kaelin's wolf surged, full and fierce. The boy sat up and held out his arms, simple as breathing. Up, the word hit Kaelin's knees like prayer. Alara hesitated, only a breath, then nodded. Kaelin lifted Aaron carefully, as though holding something sacred, but child fit perfectly against him, the small head tucking beneath his chin, trusting without effort. No ceremony, no titles, no explanations, just a child, recognizing his father. Kaelin closed his eyes. His entire world shifted on that single exhale. Kidad. The day was gentle, slow, almost ordinary. Alara tended herbs. Kaelin carved wood with a knife he borrowed. Aaron played with smooth stones and pine cones. But beneath the simplicity lay something deeper, the kind of peace that hurts because you know it cannot last untouched. Near midday, Kaelin stepped outside to breathe air heavy with pine and morning dew. His wolf was restless, not from danger but from awakening. This is ours, the wolf murmured. This is our family. Kaelin braced a hand against an old oak, breath. He had spent years believing destiny had robbed him, yet destiny had only hidden what was his. But destiny was not kind. From the direction of the palace, the faint, distant sound of a horn carried on the wind. A signal, a summons. His patrol. They would come look. Alara stepped outside behind him, hands folded lightly at her waist. You have to go back, she whispered. He did not turn. I don't want to. I know. He turned then, and the way she looked at him was almost unbearable. Not accusation, not resentment, but memory of love, memory of being chosen. I don't want to lose you again, he said. Alara's voice trembled. Then you must move carefully, slowly, quietly. If the court discovers Aaron before you are ready to protect him, they will see him as a threat, a piece to control, or remove him. Anger lanced him cold and clear. I will kill anyone who... Alara stepped closer, pressing 2 fingers to his chest, not to push him away but to steady him. That is exactly why they will fear us, she whispered, and fear turns to blood quickly in a kingdom. Their eyes held, wolf to wolf, wound to wound. I am not saying no, she said quietly. His heart paused. I am saying not yet. Kaelin breathed once, twice, then nodded, slowly, because forcing her would be losing her all over again. He leaned in, not to kiss her, not yet, but to rest his forehead against hers, the closest language their hearts remembered. Alara, he murmured, voice breaking, I will return for you both, not as a king asking, but as a mate choosing. Her breath trembled. We'll be waiting, she whispered. He turned once more to look at the cottage, at the life that had grown without him, and something inside him swore never to leave it behind again. Then, as the horn called again through the pines, Kaelin vanished into the trees, a shadow of gray and silver fur rising and running beneath the moon. The Alpha King returned to his kingdom, but something followed him now, a heartbeat, a lullaby, a sound, a love the world would soon be forced to reckon with. The palace rose like a stone crown against the morning sky, towers catching the sunlight, banners drifting in the breeze. It looked strong, unshakable, but Kaelin felt the walls differently now. They didn't protect, they confined. The moment he crossed the gates, guards fell to one knee, heads bowed in instinctive reverence. Kaelin walked past them without speaking, cloak sweeping behind him like a shadow. The weight of the Alpha King settled back onto his shoulders, heavy, cold, familiar, but something was different. His wolf was awake now, not silent, not grieving, alive, and watching, waiting to return to its family. Kaelin strode toward the throne hall, jaw set, breath steady. The council would be gathering soon. They had likely already heard whispers of his disappearance during the night, and they would want answers. He would tell them nothing, not until the time was right. He passed through tall archways, past attendants and guards, until the great doors opened before him. The council chamber was already filled. 12 high-seated nobles sat in a crescent around the throne, silks, jewels, masks of polite interest, and among them, Lady Seraphine rose from her chair with a smile that did not touch her eye. Your Majesty, she purred, stepping forward smoothly, we were beginning to worry. You left without escort last night. Kaelin's expression remained composed. Steel, I am Alpha, he replied. I do not require escort. The chamber murmured, uneasy. Seraphine inclined her head, though the gesture was hollow. Of course, we merely concern ourselves with your safety. Her gaze flickered, sharp as glass. There have been reports of movement in the forests. Strangers, possible rogues. Kalen felt his wolf bristle. Eliminate them, he said. Seraphine's eyes glinted. She wanted that answer, wanted to see where his loyalties lay, wanted to keep him predictable, controllable, but she miscalculated. Kalen stepped closer to the throne, his voice low. Unless, he continued, they are only rumors created by those who have nothing better to do than spread fear. A ripple moved through the council. Surprise, discomfort. Seraphine's smile wavered for the first time. Kalen sat, not as a king performing his role, but as an alpha who had everything to protect now. Begin your reports, he ordered. The council began to speak. Trade routes, border movements, alliances. Their voices sounded distant, muffled, like echoes across a frozen lake. Because Kalen could still hear the lullaby in the pines. He could still feel Aaron's small hand curl into the fabric of his shirt. He could still see Alara's eyes, when she said not yet. Every word spoken in the council chamber felt meaningless beside. When the meeting finally ended, Kalen did not retire to his chambers. He went to the training grounds, the only place where his muscles could speak the words his heart couldn't. He stripped off his cloak and loosened the leather of his tunic. Warriors training nearby stopped when they saw him approach, bowing their heads in respect and surprise. Continue, Kalen ordered, and they did, but the air changed. Kalen took a wooden sparring staff from the rack. The wolf beneath his skin paced, restless, hungry, protective. He swung the staff once, a clean arc through the air. The warriors exchanged glances. None wanted to volunteer to spar the alpha, so Kalen chose. You, he said, pointing to the strongest of them, Commander Rovan, a broad-shouldered warrior who had fought beside Kalen for years. Rovan hesitated only a moment before stepping forward. They circled each other. Kalen's wolf whispered, he is strong, but we are stronger. We have something to protect now. Their staffs clashed. Wood struck wood, sharp, rhythmic, echoing across the courtyard. Rovan was powerful and disciplined, but Kalen moved with clarity sharpened by grief, by love, by awakening. Not the king who had once wandered hollow, but the wolf who had remembered why he lived. Rovan's staff struck toward Kalen's ribs. Kalen dodged, pivoted, and with a single sweep of movement knocked Rovan's weapon from his grasp. The courtyard fell silent. Kalen stood still, breath steady. The wolf inside him did not glow. It simply watched the world, alert, cautious, protective. Rovan bowed deeply. Your strength has returned, my king, he said, chest heaving. Kalen shook his head once. No, his voice was quiet, filled with something fierce. It has only awakened. That night, Kalen did not sleep in the palace. He left after sunset, silent as shadow shifting into his wolf beneath the cover of night. His fur was silver gray, moonlit, eyes sharp as winter storms. He ran through forests and valleys, paws silent on the earth. The night embraced him, but the pull of the bond guided him, back, always back, to them. When he reached the clearing, the cottage window glowed warm with lamplight. He did not shift back, not yet. He approached slowly, his wolf ears pricked, paws careful not to disturb the quiet. Inside, Alara sat at the table, sewing a tear in a small shirt. Aaron lay asleep again, cheek resting against a stuffed cloth wolf toy. Candlelight made Alara's hair glow like ember-lit silk. She looked peaceful, tired, beautiful in the way wild things are, made of softness and resilience. She lifted her gaze suddenly. No sound had betrayed him, no shadow had moved, but she felt him. Her eyes moved to the window, and for a moment, just one infinite, trembling moment, they looked at each other through the glass. Not king, and a woman who had once been cast aside, but wolf and mate. Alara rose slowly and stepped outside into the cool night air, wrap pulled around her shoulders. She approached him, barefoot in the grass. Kalen lowered his head. Alara knelt, placing one gentle hand against his fur, warm, steady. Home. You came back, she whispered. Kalen leaned into her palm. Alara's voice trembled, but this time, not with fear. With him here, with you here, it feels like breathing again. Kalen shifted. Silver fur retreated into skin, bones reshaped. His human form emerged, kneeling before her beneath the moon. He did not rise. Alara, he said, voice quiet, reverent. I will come back every night if I must. Her breath caught, a soft sound more powerful than any vow, but before she could speak, a twig snapped in the wood. Not from him, not from her, another presence, unseen, watching. Alara's breath stilled, Kaelin's eyes darkened, the alpha rising once more. The world was no longer gentle. Something, or someone had found them. The night did not move, the wind did not speak. The forest held its breath. Kaelin rose in one fluid movement, positioning himself in front of Alara, shielding her with his body, his senses sharpened to a fine edge. The wolf inside him pushed forward, ears pricked, teeth bared. Alara's hand gripped the fabric of his sleeve. Wait, she breathed. Listen. It wasn't the heavy tread of a man, not the soft pad of a wolf. This was lighter, smaller. A moment later, a rustle of leaves, and two gleaming eyes peeked from the bushes. A fox. It darted into the underbrush, vanishing like a flicker of flame. Alara exhaled, shaky, shoulders slumping with released fear. Kaelin did not relax, not fully, because the fear in her reaction had not been of the creature. No, it had been of whoever she thought it might have been. He turned to her, voice low. Alara, who is watching you? Her throat tightened. The silence that followed was not uncertainty. It was the silence of someone deciding whether the truth would save or destroy. Alara wrapped her arms around herself, walking toward the cottage. Kaelin followed beside her, slow, careful, as though approaching a wounded creature that still had claws. Inside, the lamplight flickered. The warmth of the fire softened the shadows, but the air remained tense, stretched between confession and memory. Aaron slept still, small, curled like a woodland creature, safe for now. Alara watched her son, her lips pressed together, her eyes shimmering with something old and heavy. Then she spoke. 4 years ago, when the council came to me, they didn't come only to threaten my future. She sat at the table, the chair creaked quietly beneath her. Kaelin remained standing. He felt he didn't deserve the ease of sitting. They told me something that broke me, she whispered. He waited. They told me you were already promised to Seraphine, that you had agreed to. Kaelin's breath went still. No, the word came out raw, immediate. True, Alara nodded, but it was the nod of someone who had lived with the wound long enough it had scarred. I know that now. She lifted her eyes to him, soft but grieving. But I didn't know that. Kaelin's hands curled slowly into fists. Alara, I never promised myself to Seraphine, not once, not in word, not in thought. Alara closed her eyes. I know, she repeated. I know now, but back then, I believed them, because the council had never lied to the kingdom. I was nobody. I had no reason to think they would come to me just to break me. Kaelin moved closer, slowly, quietly. What else did they say? Her voice broke, not loudly, just enough to tremble in the air. They told me I was carrying a child unworthy of the crown. That if I stayed when he was born, her breath caught, they would take him away, raise him far from me, and make sure he never knew love. The world fell silent. Kaelin didn't breathe, not because he forgot, but because something inside him shattered with soundless violence. His voice when it came was no more than a whisper. Alara, they threatened to take our son. Her chin trembled. Yes. Kaelin's vision blurred around the edges. Red, hot, unthinking. The wolf inside him roared, a deep primal sound that shook through him like thunder. He leaned forward, bracing both hands on the table to keep his rage from breaking the room. Alara, he said again, voice shaking, you should have come to me, you should have told me. Her eyes flashed. Finally. Her anger flared. How? She demanded, voice cracking. Your guards would not let me through the gate. I stood for hours. I begged. I cried. I shouted your name. They said you were too busy, that you had already chosen. They said I was nothing to you. Her breath shook, shoulders trembling with the memory she had tried to bury. And the night I realized I was pregnant, I was alone. Kaelin sank into the chair across from her, the weight of her words breaking him down piece by piece. I did not know, he whispered. By the moon, Alara. I did not know. Her eyes glistened, but she did not cry now. She had cried enough for years. I know that now, she whispered. The fire crackled. Aaron stirred in his sleep, murmuring something soft and unintelligible. Kaelin's gaze softened at the sound, the way a father's gaze softens without being taught how. Alara watched him, watching the boy, and her heart ached in a way that was not pain, but remembering what love could have been. She spoke again, softer now. When he was born, I promised him safety, peace, a life without fear, and that meant staying hidden, even when it hurt, even when it felt like I had carved my heart out and left it behind with you. Her hands clenched on the table. I didn't hide because I didn't love you, Keelan. I hid because I loved him. Keelan's voice broke. I would have protected you both. She nodded. Maybe, if you had known, but the people who kept the truth from you, they believed removing us was protecting the kingdom. Keelan exhaled slowly. The council, he said. Seraphine. Alara nodded once. And others. Those who believe the Alpha should not love from the heart, but from strategy. Keelan's expression darkened. A storm gathering in silence. Alara, he said, lifting his gaze to hers. I will not let them come near you, or our son ever again. Her eyes widened, not in fear but in the kind of relief that hurts, because it is too late to stop the tears. But she blinked them back. Keelan, she whispered, they are already suspicious. They know you left the palace last night. They will watch you now. Every step, every absence. He leaned forward, voice low and certain, like a vow being etched into the bones of the earth. Then let them watch. His hand moved slowly, giving her time to withdraw if she wished. But she did not. He placed his palm over her. I will not lose you again. Her breath trembled, not from fear this time, but from remembering what it felt like to be chosen. The firelight flickered. The night wrapped around the cottage like a held breath, and for the first time in 4 years, Alara let herself hope. Morning sunlight filtered through the small cottage windows, laying soft golden squares across the wooden floor. Aaron was already awake, sitting cross-legged on the rug, with a handful of small pebbles and carved wooden animals. He narrated softly under his breath, making them talk in tiny voices. It was the kind of scene Keelan had never imagined. Quiet, ordinary, gentle. He stood in the doorway, arms folded loosely, just watching. Aaron didn't yet know the word for father, but wolves knew blood before language. Aaron looked up, and the moment he saw Keelan, his eyes lit with that same instinctive recognition. He held up a carved wolf figurine. For you. Keelan's throat tightened unexpectedly. His hand shook as he accepted the toy. Alara noticed. She always noticed. But she didn't speak. She only watched the boy with a softness that had shaped her life. Keelan crouched down beside Aaron. What is this? He asked. Though he already knew. Aaron pushed the figurine into his palm. Strong wolf. Strong wolf. Keelan repeated quietly. The boy grinned, wide and bright and uncomplicated. Something inside Keelan cracked open like thawing ice. He didn't smile often. The world did not offer him reasons. But now he smiled. Alara turned away toward the kitchen, but Keelan saw the way her shoulders trembled. Not from fear, from something like relief, and something like heartbreak, because happiness, when finally held, often hurts at first. The forest greeted her like an old friend, pine-scented, cool, dotted with sunlight filtering through green boughs. Keelan watched her go, then looked down at Aaron. The boy was drawing on the dirt floor with a stick, crooked circles, uneven lines. But there was a clarity to it, a purpose that caught Keelan's eye. The drawing was of a wolf, a large one, standing beside a smaller wolf. Keelan knelt beside him. Is that me? He asked softly. Aaron nodded without looking up. Papa Wolf. The sound was so small, so simple, but it hit Keelan harder than any blade. He did not breathe. Aaron drew the smaller wolf. And this is Aaron Wolf. Keelan swallowed. And Mama Wolf. Aaron added a third, slightly apart from the first two. Watching. Protecting. Mama Wolf stood guard. Keelan's vision warmed, blurred at the edges. He cleared his throat. You did very well, he said quietly. Aaron beamed. That afternoon, Alara sat on the moss-coated step outside the cottage while Keelan whittled wood into animal shapes for Aaron. The forest hummed with insects and rustling branches. The scent of sunlight-warm pine filled the air. For a moment, everything felt almost right. Almost. Until the wind shifted. Keelan's head lifted. His wolf surged forward, alert, watchful. Alara stilled beside him. She felt it too. Not danger, not yet, but attention. Someone's near, Keelan murmured. Alara set her basket down slowly. Hunters. No, Keelan said. His voice went low. Not rogues. Not villagers. He recognized the pattern of movement, the precision of steps, wolves trained to track but not to be seen, his own patrol. Alara's breath caught. "They're searching for you," she whispered. Keelan nodded once. "The council must have noticed my absence." Aaron, sensing the shift in the room, looked between them with wide eyes. Alara reached for him immediately, her arms circling him. "It's all right," she murmured in his hair. "We're here, we're together." Keelan's jaw set. "I need to speak to them before they get close. If they see you and Aaron." She understood. She didn't look at him with anger, only with the steady, quiet bravery she had always carried. Keelan shifted into his wolf form, the change smooth, powerful, silver fur rippling under moonlight that wasn't even there. Aaron's eyes widened, not in fear but in awe. The boy reached out. "Mama," he whispered. "Look, Papa Wolf." Alara's breath shook. Tears filled her eyes. Slow, silent. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, sweetheart. That's Papa." The wolf pressed his forehead to Aaron's. A wolf's promise, a father's vow. Then he ran, silent, swift, silver, to intercept the patrol before they could come near the cottage. Alara held Aaron close, listening to the forest. Aaron looked up at her. "Will Papa stay?" The question cut deeper than any blade ever had. Alara knelt, brushing hair from his forehead. "Yes," she said. Not as hope, not as wish, but as truth forming at last. "Papa is coming back." Aaron smiled, and leaned into her embrace. And in that moment, the world slowed, for just long enough to rest in tenderness. Emrys. Keelan reached his patrol near the river's edge. 3 wolves stood in formation, their heads bowed, ears lower. They did not question him, they only awaited command. "Alpha," the lead wolf spoke, shifting partially to kneel. "We tracked your scent to the northern woods. Is everything well?" Keelan's wolf eyes glowed like steel-cut moonlight. "Yes," he said, but it was not reassuring, it was warning. "You will not hunt this wood again." The wolves lowered their heads. "It will be done." Keelan held them with his gaze, the quiet dominance that did not need to roar. He turned back toward the forest, toward home. Aaron and Alara sat by the fire when he returned. The boy looked up and smiled like sunrise. Papa Wolf had come back. Keelan shifted, bones reshaping, fur dissolving, breath returning in human form. He approached them slowly, not as king, not as alpha, but as man. Alara looked at him, and her walls did not rise this time, because he had returned, because he had chosen to, because he would again. She spoke softly, voice like warm earth. "Keelan, how long can we live in 2 worlds?" He sat beside her, Aaron settling immediately into his lap like he had always belonged there. "Until 1 world is safe enough," Keelan answered. Alara nodded. Neither said which world that would be, but both knew. The cottage was peace. The palace was fire. And soon, one would have to enter the other. The morning they left the cottage, the sky was pale and soft as though the world itself was holding its breath. Alara packed slowly, not because she was unsure but because leaving a home is a quiet kind of grief. She folded Aaron's tiny clothes with care, tucking his carved animals into a small cloth bag. Keelan waited near the doorway, not rushing her, though every nerve in his body was taut. Aaron sat on the rug chewing an apple slice, kicking his heels, unaware that the world was changing around him. Alara's fingers hesitated on the last item, a small woven blanket, frayed at the edges. The blanket Aaron had been wrapped in when he was born. The blanket she had cried into more nights than she would ever admit. She folded it, placed it in the bag, and tied the strap close. The cottage was quiet, warm, familiar. Keelan looked at her, really looked, and his chest tightened. "You don't have to do this," he said softly. Alara lifted her gaze, meeting his. "Yes," she said. "I do, for him, not for herself, not for Keelan, for Aaron." Because love, real love, is sometimes walking back into the fire you once fled, but holding someone's hand this time. The journey to the palace was not long, but Alara kept Aaron close the entire way. Keelan walked beside them, his steps slow and protected. His wolf stayed sharp beneath his skin, every sound measured, every scent registered. When the palace gates came into view, Alara exhaled slowly. Stone walls, high towers, banners in white and gray, fluttering like slow-moving breaths. Aaron blinked up at the sight, wide-eyed. "Is that a castle?" Alara brushed his hair aside. "Yes, sweetheart." Keelan glanced down at the boy, and found himself smiling. "You'll be safe," he murmured, perhaps more to Alara than Aaron. Alara didn't speak, but her hand slipped into Kaelin's, not with romance but with necessity, stability, shared courage, and he held it, and he held it. Inside the palace courtyard, guards and servants stopped what they were doing, heads turned, eyes wide, whispers stirred like wind against dry leaves. Some recognized Alara, some recognized the child, but none spoke, because Kaelin's expression was a quiet warning carved into stone. They walked through halls of marble and carved oak, tapestries depicting centuries of wolves and kings. Alara kept her chin lifted, not proud but unbowed. Eren clung to Kaelin's cloak now, tiny fingers holding on. They entered the royal chambers, not vast and cold, but the private set Kaelin rarely allowed anyone into. The rooms were warm, lit with amber glass lanterns, the scent of cedar lingering in the air. Kaelin knelt to Eren's height. "This is where you'll sleep," he said gently. "With me, with Mama." Eren studied the bed, the fireplace, the large window that showed the whole valley. "It's big," he whispered. Kaelin's heart twisted. "It was empty," he answered. Alara's breath caught, but she said nothing. Her gown shimmered like frost, her hair coiled like a crown, her smile thin, refined, polished, was a blade wrapped in silk. "My king," she said lightly, "we heard you had returned. The council requires your presence." Her gaze slid, slow and calculated, to Alara, then to Eren. The pause lasted only a heartbeat, but that heartbeat struck like a drum. "Oh," she breathed, voice soft with a sweetness, sweeter than poison. "You brought guests." Alara didn't flinch, didn't curtsy, didn't shrink. Kaelin rose to his full height, quiet power settling around him like armor. "This is Alara," he said, "and her son." Seraphine's lashes lowered. Her son. The unspoken question hung in the air like smoke. Kaelin didn't blink. His whispers rippled down the hall like wolves rustling grass. Seraphine's smile never faltered, but her fingers tightened against her jeweled fan until the hinge creaked. "I see," she said softly. "What an unexpected development." She stepped closer, her voice velvet. "But surely, Your Majesty, we must consider appearances. The kingdom has waited for an heir raised within its walls, one of proper lineage, one who can." Kaelin stepped forward, voice a quiet storm. "Lady Seraphine." Silence tightened around them. "This is my family." Her smile vanished, just for a flicker. Alara felt Eren grip her skirt. Kaelin sensed his boy's small breath change. He crouched, running a hand gently through Eren's hair. "You are safe," he murmured. Only then did he straighten, positioning himself between them, not aggressively, but unmistakably. Seraphine dipped into a bow, stiff, brittle, the kind made of pride and salt. "Of course, my king," she said, her voice no longer honey but ice. "We will discuss this at council." She turned, gown whispering across the floor like a closing door. When the hall fell silent again, Alara's shoulders eased slightly, but Kaelin's jaw was tight. "She will not stop," Alara whispered. "No," Kaelin said. He turned to Alara, and this time there was no hesitation. "You and Eren will not walk this palace alone, not once, not anywhere. I will be with you, I will stand beside you." Alara looked at him, and her eyes were no longer afraid, because he was not choosing quietly anymore. He was choosing aloud, in front of the world, and this was only the beginning. It was astonishing how quietly cruelty traveled. Whispers did not announce themselves. They moved like drafts under doors, like cold fingers across warm skin, like shadows stretching when the sun tilted just slightly. By midday, the palace already knew. The servants, the guards, the court, the nobles who pretended to adore their king while measuring every breath he took. The Alpha King had a hidden child. The Alpha King had a mate, who was not noble-born. The Alpha King had chosen from the heart, not from power, and worst of all, he loved them. In the palace, love was a threat. Alara could feel the shift the moment she stepped into the hallway. Eyes darted toward her, then quickly away, as though looking too long would burn. Conversations died when she passed. Ladies in silks, dipped shallow curtsies, polite smiles too smooth, too sharp, polished like mirrors reflecting judgment. Alara kept her head high, not out of pride, but because she had promised herself she would not let the world teach Eren to bow to those who did not deserve reverence. Eren walked beside her, holding her hand, wide-eyed from the palace's vastness. His carved wolf toy dangled from his finger. He did not notice the whispers, not yet, but children always learn faster than anyone wishes. But later that day, Kaelin returned from a council session that had stretched too long. His jaw was tight, his eyes were the dark gray of storm clouds collecting pressure. Alara was in the royal gardens, kneeling beside Aaron as he tried to catch falling leaves in his hands, laughing, as the breeze kept stealing them away. Keelan stopped when he saw them. For one moment, his shoulders released, his expression softened, the storm eased. Pop, Aaron called out, running to him on small determined steps. Keelan lifted him effortlessly into his arms. Aaron giggled, arms thrown around his father's neck. Keelan closed his eyes briefly, holding that weight, that warmth, that trust, as though it were the most fragile and precious thing in the world. Alara rose slowly. "You're back," she said. He opened his eyes. Yes, but something in that yes was tired, heavy. Alara stepped closer. "What happened?" Keelan hesitated, not because he didn't want to tell her, but because the truth required care. "The council is demanding a formal inquiry into Aaron's status," he said quietly. Alara went still. "They want proof," Keelan continued. "Not of blood. They consent that. They want proof of your worth." Her fingers curled slowly into her skirt. "Proof," she repeated. The word was soft, but her voice was not. It was steel wrapped in cotton. Keelan's expression hard. "They believe you threaten the stability of the throne. They claim that bringing you forward without preparation could cause political unrest." Alara met his eyes. "What they mean is I do not come from their world." Keelan nodded once. She did not look away, did not break. "I know." They walked together through the garden paths, Aaron riding Keelan's hip, humming to himself. "I spent years teaching Aaron to live quietly," Alara said, voice low, "to stay small, invisible, safe." Keelan listened, truly listened. "And now," she continued, "I must teach him how to walk through this palace with his head high and not lose the softness in him." Keelan looked down at the boy, then at her, voice quiet but full. "You will not do that alone, not anymore." Alara's breath trembled, not with fear, with relief, so sharp it hurt. But peace does not hold forever. Later, as they returned through the corridor, a group of noble women stepped deliberately across their path, too casually to accuse, too carefully to claim coincidence. Seraphine stood at their center. Her gown today was pale silver like moonlight drained of warmth. Her smile was gentle, practiced, kind in the way frost feels soft before it burns. "My king," she greeted with a bow that was just barely too shallow. "Lady Alara." Alara inclined her head, respectful, but not submissive. "We were just speaking of the child," Seraphine continued. Keelan stilled. Alara did not speak. She did not give these women her pain. Seraphine lowered her gaze to Aaron, who clung shyly to Keelan's side. "What a precious thing," she said with a sweet, almost tender voice, and venom sharp beneath it. "Though of course it will be complicated. A child raised without our customs, without our training, without refinement. But perhaps," Keelan stepped forward, just one step, but it changed the air entirely. "You are mistaken," he said softly. Seraphine blinked. "Aaron is not unrefined," Keelan continued. "He is unbroken." The silence that followed struck like a bell. Seraphine's smile faltered, just barely but enough. She dipped into another bow, this one deeper, stiffer, strained. "Of course, my king." She turned. The noble women parted like velvet curtains, and they left. The hallway remained quiet long after. "Yes, Aaron." The boy's lip wobbled slightly. "That lady didn't like us." Keelan's heart clenched with a pain that was old and new all at once. "No," he said honestly. "She didn't." Aaron swallowed, voice very small. "Did I do something wrong?" Alara closed her eye. Keelan lifted his son's face gently with one hand. "No," he said, "you did nothing wrong. Do you hear me?" Aaron nodded, but his eyes were wet. Keelan pulled him into his chest, holding him tight. Alara watched, and something inside her cracked, not with pain, with fire. She stepped closer and rested her hand over Keelan's where he held their son. He held their son. "We will teach him," she said. Keelan looked at her. "To be kind, to be strong, to know who he is, even when others try to tell him different." Keelan's eyes softened, and for a moment, the world steadied. "Yes," he murmured. They stood together like that, a quiet fortress of three, while the palace tried to decide what story it would tell about them, and in that stillness, something changed. The court had but Alara had not bowed. The kingdom had judged, but Keelan had chosen, and the walls of the palace, old, cold, unfeeling, felt the first tremor of something rising. Not rebellion, not war, a family. The palace did not sleep at night. it whispered. Servants carried candles through the corridors like drifting stars, bootsteps echoed on cold stone, and somewhere, behind every wall, every curtain, every shadow, eyes watched. Alara felt it like a change in the wind, not fear, but attention sharpened to an edge. She kept Aaron close through the day, guiding him gently through the new world of marble and mirrors. He clung to her hand, but did not hide behind her skirts anymore. He watched, he learned, he was careful, but curious. And Keelan walked beside them as often as he could. But a king is never truly free of obligation. On the fourth day in the palace, he was called to settle a border dispute among rival packs. "I'll be gone until sunset," he told Alara quietly, cupping her cheek as though memorizing her warmth. "My guards are outside your chamber. No one enters." Alara nodded. "Be safe." His thumb brushed her jaw, gentle, lingering, almost a kiss. Then he left, cloak sweeping over stone. And the moment he did, the palace moved. Lady Seraphine did not come herself. No, she was far too intelligent. Instead it began with smiles. 3 noble women approached Alara and Aaron in the west garden, where autumn roses had just begun to open in pale pinks and faded reds. "How lovely to see you finally exploring," one said, voice edged with honeyed mockery. Alara straightened, but kept her tone calm. "The gardens are beautiful." "Oh yes," the second woman purred, "though one must be careful, children can wander." Aaron's hand tightened in Alara's. The third smiled, sharp, "And in a palace, not everyone is." The meaning was unmistakable. Alara met their eyes, each one slowly, unflinching. "I am aware," she said, and walked away. They did not follow. They didn't need to. Their message had already been delivered. That evening the sun dipped low, orange glaze, melting into violet. Alara and Aaron returned to their chambers. A warm meal waited. The fire burned steady. It felt safe, quiet, almost peaceful, until knock, the door. Alara's heart tightened. She opened it to find Lady Seraphine herself, hands folded, expression serene. "Good evening," Seraphine said, voice soft, polite, calculated. "May I come in?" Alara blocked the doorway with her body. "No." Seraphine's smile widened, delighted even by resistance. "Of course. I merely came to deliver a message." Aaron moved behind Alara, small, silent, watching. Seraphine lowered her voice to a whisper meant to wound. "The council meets tomorrow. They will require proof of the boy's legitimacy." Alara didn't blink. "You mean they want to parade him like livestock?" Seraphine's lashes fluttered. "My dear, legitimacy must be seen to be believed." Alara's voice turned quiet, dangerous in its calm. "His legitimacy is in his blood, in his scent, in the bond." Seraphine leaned in just slightly. "Blood can be falsified, bonds can be manipulated, but breeding, tells truth." Aaron let out a small, frightened exhale. Alara's fingers curled like claws. Seraphine's smile sharpened. "The kingdom will not accept a Luna who does not know how to protect her child." The implication was a dagger tipped with poison. Alara's pulse pounded, not with fear, but fury. "You threatened my son once," she whispered. "Do not forget how quickly a wolf learns to bite." Seraphine's eyes glittered, pleased, because fear was not what she saw. Conflict was. "Good night, Alara," she murmured. She walked away, perfume trailing like a ghost. Alara closed the door and locked it. She knelt and pulled Aaron into her arms, holding him tight. "It's all right," she breathed against his hair. "No one will take you. Not again. Not ever." Aaron shook, just slightly, small hands gripping her dress. "Mama, did I do something wrong?" Alara's heart broke and reformed all at once. "No," she whispered. "No, my heart. None of this is your fault." But her own hands trembled, because the palace was not just disapproval now. It was intent. He crossed the room in 3 strides and knelt in front of her. "Alara," his voice was raw, "tell me." She did, not dramatizing, not softening, just truth. Kalen's jaw tightened, muscle ticking. His breathing changed, slow, controlled, because control was the only thing preventing him from tearing through the palace walls claw first. When she finished, silence fell. Not empty silence, the kind of silence that happens before the earth breaks open. "Alara," Kalen said, voice low and lethal, "I will end this. Every one of them will answer for what they've done." She shook her head. "No, not like this." His eyes snapped to hers, burning. "They threatened our son." Yet, her voice trembled not from fear but from certainty.
And they want you to react, to be the king who chooses with emotion rather than strategy. They want to prove I make you weak. Kaelin stared at her, breathing hard. Alara reached out and touched his cheek gently, grounding him in the only way she ever had to. You are not weak, she whispered. And neither am I. His expression broke just for a heartbeat. Love is a quiet collapse sometimes. He leaned his forehead to her. I can't lose you. You won't. And Aaron, he is ours. The fire cracked softly between them, but outside the chamber in the stone-boned hallways of the palace, Lady Seraphine was already planning, and the court's whispers had sharpened into knots. The palace was different the next morning. Not louder, not chaotic, quieter, the kind of quiet that has intention in it. Footsteps softened, whispers muted, gazes lingered too long. Something had shifted overnight. Alara felt it the moment she opened her eyes. She held Aaron close while Kaelin left to attend the council meeting. The same council that had once decided she should disappear from his life entirely. The same council now preparing to evaluate her place in the kingdom. The last thing Kaelin said before he left was, I will fix.
I swear it. But when the doors closed behind him, Alara did not feel reassured. She felt watched. Aaron played quietly with his carved animals by the hearth, making soft growls and whispers. Every now and then he glanced toward the hall, instinct sharper than a child's should. Mama, he asked softly, why is the palace sad today? Alara touched his hair. It isn't sad, she whispered. It's listening. The council hall was filled to the edges when Kaelin entered. 12 chairs, 12 cold eyes, and Lady Seraphine at their head. My king, she greeted. We are gathered to address the matter. Kaelin took his seat slowly, not because he respected them, but because he knew patience could be a blade. Speak, he said. Seraphine folded her hands as though she were praying. Oh, she was always praying to the throne she believed should have been hers. We simply wish to confirm that the child you brought to the palace is. Kaelin's voice cut like winter steel. He is my son. The room flamed. Yes, Seraphine said gently, but blood alone does not guarantee acceptance. If the kingdom is to embrace this child, we must evaluate his upbringing, his suitability. His suitability, Kaelin repeated, voice quiet and lethal. Children raised outside of noble culture are unrefined, Seraphine continued. We must ensure he can meet the expectations of a future king. And as for the mother, Kaelin's chair scraped the floor as he stood. The council froze. Alara is my mate, he said, the words falling heavy, final, irrevocable. That bond is sacred. Seraphine's expression flickered. Ah, there it was. The crack. But love, she began, is not a weakness, Kaelin finished. The silence that followed swallowed the room, but Seraphine had not come without preparing the blade she intended to use. My king, she said quietly, if your love is truly strong, then the couple must stand before the kingdom at the gathering moon in 2 nights' time, present themselves, present the child, let the Pax judge their Luna and heir. The room held its breath. Kaelin's jaw tightened, not in fear but calculation. He could win such a moment. He could, but only if Alara was ready. And she wasn't. Not yet. Yes, Kaelin said. The council stirred. Seraphine's smile was victory wrapped in silk. As you wish. Abba. When Kaelin returned to their chambers, he found the room empty. The hearth was cold, the blankets folded, the air still. Aaron's carved wolf lay on the pillow, alone. Alara, Kaelin's voice echoed sharply. Aaron, silence. His heart kicked against his ribs. The wolf inside him howled. He tore through the palace corridors, breath ragged, pulse roaring, guards scattering out of his path as though the air itself was burning. He reached the courtyard, just in time to see the back gate closing. Alara, Aaron in her arms, a cloak pulled over them both. She didn't run. She walked, head high, spine straight. Her choice was not escape. It was protection. Alara, Kaelin's voice cracked raw against stone. She froze. Slowly, she turned. Her eyes shone, not with fear but devastation. Kaelin, she whispered, and that was the kind of whisper that breaks bone. He reached her. He was breathing hard as though the world had tilted off its axis. His hands hovered, not touching her, afraid of how easily everything could shatter. Alara, he said, don't go. Her breath trembled. If I stay, they will devour him, she whispered. Not with claws, not with fangs, with doubt, with whisper, with expectations meant to bend and break. Kaelin shook his head, once violently. I can protect you. Her eyes closed. You can protect bodies, Kaelin, she said, but you cannot guard innocence. Those words hit harder than any. Eren looked up between them, small, confused. Papa, Kaelin's voice broke. I'm here, he said. I'm right here. Alara's tears slipped down, quiet, steady, inevitable. I will come back, she whispered, when the kingdom is ready to see him as a child, not a. Kaelin reached for her hand, and this time, she didn't pull away. Their fingers interlaced, trembling like the first night beside the river. Alara, he breathed. I cannot lose you again. Her voice cracked. You're not losing us, she whispered. You're learning how to fight for us. A lesson every king must face. Wind moved through the courtyard, soft, final, like the sigh of something ancient. Alara stepped back. Kaelin didn't move, not because he didn't want to stop her, but because love, real love, does not care. It trusts, even when trust hurts. Eren reached toward him, fingers spread, searching. Kaelin leaned in, kissing his forehead, slow, reverent, shaking. I will find you, he said. Eren nodded, small and sure. I know. And the forest took them back, mother and child, disappearing into dusk. The palace felt enormous then, hollow, echoing. A fortress made of stone and lawn. Kaelin stood alone in the courtyard, eyes burning, breath shaking, heart silent except for one truth beating like a drum inside him. He had let love walk away once. He would not allow it a second time. The forest had always been a sanctuary for Alara, a place where the world softened, where leaves whispered safety, where no one demanded anything, except breath and time. But this time, the forest felt heavier, as though it too remembered another departure, another heartbreak. 4 winters ago, Alara moved carefully, beneath the old pines. Eren held close against her hip. He had fallen asleep sometime near dusk, his cheek resting on her shoulder, but his skin felt warm, too warm. She laid him down in the cottage, their cottage, and the moment his head touched the pillow he shivered. Alara, his voice was a thin, fragile thread. She brushed hair from his forehead and froze. He was burning, not with fever alone but with something deep. Wolves were born tied to their pack's presence, to their alpha, to their blood. If separated too long, a child could weaken, as though their body couldn't remember how to belong to itself. Alara, I'm cold, Eren whispered, though his skin burned like flame. Her heart faltered. No, she whispered, hands trembling. Not this, not now, not him. She lifted him into her arms but he whimpered at the movement. That sound nearly broke her knee. She worked quickly, crushing willow bark, herbs, cool cloths, but every remedy slid off him like water off stone, because this wasn't illness. This was bond sickness. The child of the Alpha King needed his father's presence, his scent, his wolf, the way lungs needed air. She had taken him away. Her breath cracked. Eren, she whispered, cupping his cheek. Stay with me, my love. His eyes fluttered, unfocused, searching for something he couldn't name. Mama, where's Pop? Her heart shattered like glass dropped from a great height. He's coming, she whispered, even though she had no way of knowing. But love sometimes knows before the body does. Something inside him tightened so sharply he staggered forward, hand bracing against the council table. My king? Seraphine asked, voice falsely concerned. Kaelin didn't answer, because his wolf was howling inside him, not in anger, in fear. He turned, without a word, and left the council hall. He didn't shift inside the palace walls, but the moment he crossed the courtyard, and hit forest air, fur rippled across his skin, and the wolf took form in one heartbeat. He ran. The world blurred into streaks of green and silver. Branches whipped past, roots tore under his paws. He didn't think, didn't breathe. He felt Eren's heartbeat, faint. Alara's grief, sharp. The mate bond, alive. He found them when twilight was sinking into night. Alara was kneeling on the cottage floor, Eren in her arms, whispering the lullaby that once sounded like love and now sounded like prayer. Sleep, little star, the night is kind. Her voice broke. Kaelin shifted mid-sprint, fur to skin, paws to hands, and fell to his knees beside them. Alara, he breathed, voice shaking. She didn't look at him. She couldn't. She was too busy holding their child together with the strength of her whole soul. He needs you, she whispered. I thought I could protect him by leaving, but wolves do not heal alone. Kaelin pulled Eren into his arms carefully, so carefully, as though the boy were made of breath and silk. Eren's eyes opened, glazed and unfocused. Papa, Kaelin's voice broke on the answer.
I'm here. Aaron's small hand curled weakly in his tunard. And then, Kalen lowered his head and pressed his forehead to his son's. Wolf to wolf, blood to blood, heart to heart. It was not magic, not ritual. It was belonging. A pulse traveled through the air, warm, silver, ancient. Aaron's breathing steadied, just barely. His fever cooled, just slightly, not healed, but held. Alara's hands flew to her mouth, the relief so sharp it was pain. Kalen held Aaron close, rocking him gently. I have you, he whispered, voice breaking on every word. I have you, little one. Alara sank forward, forehead pressing into Kalen's shoulder. I'm sorry, she sobbed. I thought leaving would keep him safe. I thought distance was protection. I was wrong. I was so wrong. Kalen wrapped his arm around her. The three of them folded together on the floor. One grief, one love, one heartbeat. No, he whispered into her hair. You did what you had to do. You protected him, the only way you could. And now, his voice we protect him together. Alara nodded into him, tears falling silently. Aaron shifted in Kalen's hold, curling into his father's chest with a weak sigh. Mama, Papa, don't go. Neither of them spoke. They did not need to. They would not leave him, not now, not ever again. The fire burned low. The world outside listened. And somewhere beneath the grief and fear and exhaustion, hope breathed again. But beyond the forest, the kingdom was already changing. Rumors turning to suspicion, suspicion turning to anger, anger turning to movement. And Seraphine was moving her pieces. The peace of this night would not last. But for now, for this one moment, Alara, Kalen, Aaron, were together. The cottage was quiet, except for the soft breathing of the boy sleeping between them. Aaron rested at last, his fever broken, but his strength had not yet returned. His face was pale, his breaths were shallow, his small fingers curled weakly against Kalen's chest, as though afraid to lose the warmth again. Alara watched him with a grief-soaked tenderness. Her dark hair fell loose around her shoulders. Her eyes did not blink. She had not slept since before nightfall. Kalen sat beside her on the floor, his back resting against the bedframe, his arm wrapped around her shoulders, steady, grounding, as though he finally understood that the only thing stronger than his wolf was the fear of losing them. The fire burned low, casting slow golden shadows over the room. Alara spoke first, her voice barely a whisper. He needs the pack, doesn't he? Kalen nodded, jaw trembling once before he steadied it. Yes, wolves belong to more than themselves. A child born of alpha blood, even more so. She looked down at Aaron, at his eyelashes, his tiny nose, his flushed cheek. I wanted to keep him safe, she whispered, but I made him lonely. Kalen turned to her, gently guiding her chin, so she would look at him. No, Alara, his voice was soft, steady, certain. You kept him alive. You gave him joy. You gave him a childhood. You gave him love. That is all a child ever truly needs. Her breath trembled, not in doubt, in relief. Kalen leaned forward, pressing his forehead to hers, quiet, reverent, a vow spoken without words. Alara, he whispered, let us stop running. Her lips parted, not in refusal, but in release, because she was tired, so tired of being stronger than the world allowed, and tired of loving without being held. What must I do, she asked. Kalen's hand covered hers, their fingers interlacing, like roots finding their way back to the same earth. There is an ancient rite, he said, the Luna's claim. It binds the mate bond fully. It protects the child. It makes the pack recognize you, not by blood, not by rank, but by truth. Alara's eyelashes fluttered. It will change everything, Kalen continued. Once the bond is completed, there is no court, no council, no noble, no Seraphine, who can challenge your play. And Aaron, she asked. He will be protected by the bond, by the alpha, by the pack, fully. Alara's eyes fell to her son's sleeping face. She smoothed his hair back gently. I will do it, she said. Kalen exhaled slowly, a breath that sounded like he had been holding it for 4 years. They walked to the clearing under the moon. Alara carried Aaron, wrapped in his small blanket. Kalen walked beside them, wolf just beneath his skin, not threatening, not raging, present. The moon hung low and full, white as bone, soft as milk. The air was still, no birds, no wind, as if the forest itself knew what was about to occur. Kalen stood before her, bare feet in the grass, chest rising slow and deep. Alara, he said, voice like something ancient. Do you come willingly to the bond that was always yours? Alara stepped forward. Yes. Do you claim me, not as king but as mate? Her voice did not waver. Yes. Do you claim the pack not for power, but to protect your child? Alara looked at Aaron, at the little heartbeat she had protected through every storm, and she held him closer. Yes. Kaelin's eyes softened and the wolf rose in him, glowing silver beneath his skin. He knelt. He bowed his head. The alpha knelt to her. Alara, he whispered, voice breaking, I have been yours since the river. Her breath caught. She stepped forward, and placed her hand gently at the back of his neck. The moment her skin touched his, the bond opened, not lightning, not fire, not violence, warmth, a deep slow warmth that spread through the chest, through the ribs, through the bones, into the breath, like finally remembering the melody to the song you were born from. Alara gasped softly, hand clutching Kaelin's shoulder. Kaelin's arms wrapped around her, pulling her to him, forehead to forehead, breath to breath. The world did not explode. It aligned. Her pulse, his pulse, Aaron's pulse, 3 heartbeats, the same rhythm, one family, one bond, one heart. Aaron stirred, eyelashes fluttering, and whispered, half asleep, Mama, Papa. The bond sealed. The forest exhaled. The moon glowed warmer, and somewhere deep in the palace, Seraphine felt the moment, like a blade being turned, and she began to move. Because when love becomes unbreakable, only war is left to those who tried to stop it. The moonlight had barely faded when the forest changed. Wolves lifted their heads all across the valley, recognizing the newly forged Luna bond like a bell tolling across the sky. The ancient magic of the packs rippled outward, settling into hearts, bones, instinct. Alara was Luna now, and Aaron, heir not in rumor, not in blood alone, but in the bond of the pack itself. But power, once revealed, does not lie quietly, and some hearts cannot bear the truth. They returned to the cottage before dawn. Aaron slept deeply, breathing steady for the first time in days. Alara placed him gently in his bed, fingers brushing his cheek before she drew back, exhaustion and relief, softening her limbs. Kaelin stood behind her. He did not speak. He simply looked at her, not with hunger, not with want, but with the kind of reverence men only show once in a lifetime, when they realize they have found the person their soul has been trying to return to for years. Alara turned, and Kaelin brushed a thumb along her cheekbone. Luna, he said softly. Her breath trembled, not from uncertainty, from acceptance, but the moment did not hold long. A howl cut through the forest, sharp, urgent, wrong. Kaelin's head snapped up. His wolf surged to the surface instantly. Another howl answered, then another, a call to arms. Someone was approaching the cottage. Alara, stay with Aaron, Kaelin said, already moving toward the door, but Alara stepped in front of him. No, she said, quiet, but unshakable. We protect him together. Kaelin hesitated only a second, then nodded. They left the cottage, stepping into the clearing just as shadows emerged between trees. Not rogues, not council emissaries, wolves, wearing the silver insignia of the Queen's Guard, Seraphine's elite. The leader stepped forward, tall, armored, his wolf sigil cloak fluttering behind him. By order of the High Court, he announced, voice ringing cold through the trees, the child is to be taken into protective custody. His upbringing will be overseen by the council, until his suitability as heir is confirmed. Alara's pulse hammered, but she did not retreat. That child is ours, she said. The guard did not blink, and the kingdom is ours to protect. The Luna bond was performed outside the law. Your status is not yet recognized. The heir is therefore considered. Kaelin's voice dropped to a quiet, blood-deep growl. Say it. The guard swallowed. A political liability. Silence split the clearing. Then the forest answered. With a sound like thunder breaking, Kaelin shifted. Not slowly, not gracefully, like a storm folding into a body. His silver wolf form hit the earth with a sound like ancient memory waking. The Queen's Guard stepped back, but it was Alara who moved first. She did not shift, not yet. She stepped forward, hair loose around her face, shoulders squared, every inch of her alive with the new bond glowing beneath her skin. You will not touch him, she said. There is power in quiet words spoken with conviction. The guard flinched, but another voice rose from behind them, smooth, sharp and cold. Oh, I think they will. Seraphine stepped into the clearing, cloak trailing, diamonds catching the moonlight. hair twisted like a crown. Her smile was thin as winter ice. "Good evening, Your Majesty," she said to Kaelin's wolf form. "You look desperate." Kaelin's growl rolled like thunder across the earth. Seraphine turned her eyes to Alara, and for the first time she did not pretend softness. "You were given a chance to disappear peacefully," she said. "You refused. Now the kingdom will see how selfishness destroys even the purest things." Alara's hands did not shake. "My son is not your weapon." Seraphine stepped closer, enjoying the pain she believed she was about to cause. "On the contrary," she whispered, "he is the only weapon that matters." And then, the guards moved. Kaelin lunged, silver fur and teeth and feral fury. Alara's wolf finally rose, bursting from her skin in a rush of power she had never allowed herself to feel. Sleek, dark-furred, fast as wildfire, she met Kaelin's side, two wolves moving as one. The guards faltered, not expecting the Luna to fight. But Alara was not fighting like a queen. She was fighting like a mother, and the forest did not watch quietly. Wolves appeared on the ridges, members of the pack drawn by the Luna bond, by the air's scent, by the alpha's rage. Their eyes glowed in the trees, silent sentinels, not attacking, witnessing, because the fate of the pack was being decided. Kaelin struck down the first guard with a force that shook the ground. Alara darted beneath another, knocking him off balance, jaws snapping inches from his arm. Seraphine watched, studying, calculating. She was not here to win the fight. She was here to force a choice. "Kaelin," she shouted over the battle, "if you kill them, the council will declare you unfit to rule. Your child will inherit a kingdom in chaos." Kaelin froze mid-snarling breath, teeth at a soldier's throat. And that pause, that single moment of choosing, was exactly what Seraphine had wanted. Her eyes gleamed. "There is only one way to keep him safe," she said softly. "Give him to us. Let us raise him. Let him grow without threat, without you." Alara shifted back, human again, breath ripping out of her lungs. "You want to take his childhood," she said. "His family, his home." "No," Seraphine replied. "I want to take your hope." Alara's face changed, not with fear.
With realization. "You don't care about the kingdom," she whispered. Seraphine's expression did not flicker. "You want to hurt me," Alara said. "Because Kaelin loves me." The silence that followed was a confirmation more brutal than words. Seraphine finally smiled. Small, sharp, honest. "At last, you understand." The clearing went impossibly still. Kaelin, still in wolf form, stepped in front of Alara, fur bristling, eyes blazing. Seraphine's voice lowered. "I will burn your peace to the ground," she said. "Since you dared to touch what was meant to be mine." Alara's eyes lifted, and something ancient moved behind them. Not magic, not rage. A promise. "You cannot destroy what you never owned," she said. The forest held its breath, and somewhere, far, far beyond diplomacy, politics and courtly manipulation, war began. It was quiet afterward, not the silence of peace, but the silence of decision. The Queen's guard had retreated to the treeline, forming a rigid semicircle around Seraphine. Kaelin and Alara stood in the clearing, wolves no longer but themselves, breathless, blood warm, trembling from battle and bond. Aaron slept inside the cottage, unaware of how close the world had come to losing its shape around him. The moon hung pale now, sinking toward dawn. A new day was coming. Whether it would be born in peace, or ruin rested on the space between heartbeats. Seraphine smiled, not triumphant, but certain, as though she knew the world favored her. "You think love is enough to rule," she said quietly, "and that is why you will lose." Alara didn't answer, not because she lacked words, but because her wolf knew silence could be more powerful than any retort. Seraphine stepped forward, hands loosely clasped. "Your people do not want a Luna from the woods," she said. "They want stability. They want heritage. They want strength." Alara lifted her chin. Her voice was soft, but it carried. "Strength is knowing when to hold your child, not when to take someone else's." Seraphine flinched. The smallest fracture, and Kaelin saw it. He understood then. Seraphine had once been a child who was not held, but pain did not excuse cruelty. Seraphine inhaled, slow, controlled. "Kaelin," she said, turning to him, "I will give you one chance to make the choice your parents would have made. Hand over the child. Let the council raise him. Rule beside me. The kingdom will be stable, the legacy secure." Kaelin stared at her. No rage, no growl, no threat, only clarity, sharp and quiet.
Alara is my Luna, he said, and Aaron is my heir. Seraphine's expression wavered, but only for a moment. Then the kingdom will burn, she murmured. Kaelin stepped forward, slow, deliberate, the weight of an alpha in every breath. If the kingdom burns, he said, it will not be by my hand, but yours. The pack wolves watching from the ridge stirred, ears pricking, weight shifting, instincts aligning. They were not choosing politics, they were choosing truth. The voice came from the ridge above. A wolf, old, fur gone silver white with age, stepped into the clearing. When he shifted, his form was tall, carved with time and earning. He leaned on a gnarled staff of living wood. Elder Thalen, the spiritual keeper of the pack, the one voice who could speak between tradition and destiny. All wolves lowered their heads, even Kaelin. Thalen's gaze moved to Lara, and something in his expression softened. You performed the Luna bond, he said. Alara nodded. Yes, you did so without fear. Yes, you did so for love. Alara swallowed. Yes. Thalen nodded once, slow, reverent. Then the bond stands, and the Luna stands. The guards shifted, uneasy, but they did not challenge the elder. Seraphine's lips tightened. She had not planned for him. Thalen turned, not to the council, not to the guards, but to the pack watching from the trees. Who does the pack follow? He called, voice ringing like struck bronze. The forest stirred. Wolves stepped forward, one by one, two by two in pairs and clusters. Warriors, healers, hunters, mothers with pups, young wolves with burning eyes. They came, and they bowed, not to Kaelin, not to Lara, but to Aaron, the heir. Seraphine took a half step back. No, she whispered, small now, the world slipping from her hands like sand. No, this is not how destiny works. Thalen looked at her, and there was nothing cruel in his gaze. Destiny is not what is deserved, child, he said softly. It is what is recognized. Seraphine trembled, her eyes once fire, now hollow glass. When he was born, she whispered, voice cracking, I thought the kingdom would be mine. Alara stepped forward slowly. You could have chosen love, she said gently. Seraphine let out a sound broken, raw, not quite a sob. I didn't know. Alara's expression held no victory, no triumph, only grief. We learn, she whispered. Seraphine closed her eyes. The guards lowered their weapons. The wolves lifted their heads. The dawn finally broke across the treetop, and the war ended, not with a final blow, but with truth laid bare. Lay. When the sun had risen warm and gold, the three of them stood together in the clearing. Kaelin, Alara, Aaron, in Kaelin's arms, sleepy and safe. Alara leaned her head against Kaelin's shoulders. His hand rested on the back of her neck, gentle, grounding. The forest was quiet now, the kind of quiet where life begins again. Alara looked up at Kaelin and spoke softly, voice threaded with wonder and ache. After everything, after all we lost, we still found our way home. Kaelin lowered his forehead to hers, closing his eyes. Yes, he whispered, because love was always leading us back. Behind them, the pack howled, not in mourning, in recognition, in unity, in welcome. The Alpha, the Luna, the heir. Years have a way of softening even the sharpest wounds, not by erasing them, but by teaching the heart how to hold them gently. The forest that once hid Alara and Aaron in quiet exile now welcomed them openly. The palace that once felt like cold stone and judgment was warm with song and laughter, and the kingdom that once whispered doubt, now spoke their names with reverence. Time had reshaped everything. Time, and love. The ceremony of the moonrise. The gathering took place on the high hill, overlooking the valley, where the sky stretched wide and open, and the air carried the scent of pine and river water. Wolves from every pack clan gathered, their eyes glowing gold and silver beneath the setting sun. The Alpha stood beside his Luna. Kaelin wore no armor, only the mantle of the Alpha King woven from moonthread and wolf crest silver. Alara stood in a gown the color of early dawn, hair braided with herbs and small white blossoms gathered from the cottage garden. And Aaron, no longer a child hidden in the shadows of fate, stood proudly between them, small hand in each of theirs. He had grown into his eyes, storm gray like his father's, unbroken like his mother's, strong, still gentle, a child of two worlds, and the heir to both. The elder Thalen marked the air with his staff, voice carrying across the hillside. Behold the Alpha, behold the Luna, behold the heir. No one knelt, not because they refused, but because they were family, not subject. Kaelin squeezed Alara's hand, and for a moment, they were simply two souls who had found their way back through heartbreak and time. And when the moon rose, full and pale gold, the pack howled, not in mourning, not in hunger, not in fear, in recognition. Alara leaned down and whispered to her son, "Listen, they are singing for you." Aaron's small face lifted to the moon, eyes wide, shining.
Seasons passed. The palace changed, in ways, small and grand. The halls that once echoed with stiff silence, now carried children's laughter. Aaron chased pups through the courtyards. Young wolves learned to hunt in the garden. Alara opened a healer's school in the south wing, teaching herbs and soft-hearted medicine. Kaelin, once a king carved from duty, learned how to laugh softly in the mornings, to rest his hand on his son's back while he slept, to lean his forehead to Lara's when words were too small to hold the love between them. And Seraphine, she did not disappear. No one banished her. No one destroyed her. No one took her name or her place. Instead, she traveled far into the mountains where the elder circles lived among stone and silence, where wolves who needed healing went to remember how to rebuild themselves. Time did not punish her. It taught her, and someday, perhaps not soon, she would return, not as enemy, but as someone who had learned how to choose differently. No palace chamber could replace its warmth. In the evenings, Alara and Kaelin would walk there with Aaron, carrying baskets of bread and honey, picking herbs, restoring what time had taken. The silence there was gentle, the air sweet. Sometimes Kaelin would lie with his head in Alara's lap while she braided flowers into his hair, and laughed at how still he pretended to be. Sometimes Aaron would curl between them, and fall asleep while they watched fireflies blink into being. And sometimes when the moon was bright enough to spill silver across everything it touched, Alara would sing, "Sleep, little star, the night is kind, the moon will guard your dreaming mind." But now, the lullaby no longer trembled with sorrow, it glowed with peace, with promise, with the sound of a story that had hurt, but had healed. After many years, no legend begins with power, no legend is born from ease. Legends begin in the dark, they begin with loss, and fear, and the small trembling choice to hope anyway. And so it was that bards began to tell the tale, of the Alpha King who lost his heart once, and found it again in the woods, of the Luna who sang a lullaby beneath the pines, and built a home out of love alone, of the air who laughed like sunlight, and was raised by hands gentle enough to hold the world without bending it, a kingdom healed, a family restored, a love that and on nights when the moon shone brightest, villagers passing near the forest claimed they could still hear a soft voice singing among the trees, not as mourning, as memory, as devotion, as blessing. Kaelin stood with Alara at the cottage door one such night, Aaron fast asleep inside. Fireflies drifted like sparks of starlight around them. Alara leaned her head against his shoulder. "We have walked a long road," she whispered. Kaelin kissed her head. "And I would walk it again," he whispered back, "if every step led to you." Their fingers intertwined, the simplest promise the world had ever known. The moon glowed, the forest breathed, silence embraced them, and somewhere in the quiet between heartbeats, love began again.